At Robert's funeral, his brother Marcus and my sister Chloe hovered over me, their concern feeling like a cage. Then Arthur, a stranger, told me Robert's death wasn't an accident. I clutched the letter in Robert's handwriting, realizing their true intentions. My quiet smile hit a storm. They thought I was broken, but I was just waiting. Follow my journey, like, share, and let me know where you're listening from. 24 hours. That's all it had been since Robert's funeral, and the silence in our home was a physical weight pressing down on me. Grief, raw and relentless, clawed at my insides. But even through the haze of tears, I felt it. The subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the atmosphere around me. My brother-in-law Marcus and my sister Chloe had been a constant presence, their concern bordering on suffocating. Every sigh was met with an empathetic glance, every quiet moment interrupted by an offer of tea or a forced anecdote about Robert. Their attentiveness felt less like comfort and more like surveillance, a peculiar unease settling deep in my bones. Despite my profound sorrow, life and its mundane cruelty demanded attention. The refrigerator was empty, a stark reminder that even in tragedy, hunger persisted. So, on what felt like the most difficult morning of my life, I forced myself out of the house, heading towards the grocery store. The drive was a blur of unshed tears and heavy thoughts, until a glint of chrome on the shoulder of Route 12 snagged my attention. A dark sedan, its hood up, with a man kneeling by a deflated tire. My first instinct was to drive past. My world was shattering. I had nothing left to give. But then, a flash of Robert's kind smile crossed my mind. Robert, who would stop for anyone, who believed in helping without question. His compassion was a beacon, even now in his absence. With a sigh that felt like it came from the depths of my soul, I pulled over. The man looked up as I approached. He was older, distinguished, with a shock of silver hair and keen, intelligent eyes. "Can I help?" I managed, my voice raspy from crying. He pushed himself to his feet, a slight grimace on his face. "Eleanor, isn't it?" My breath caught. How did he know my name? A cold prickle of unease replaced my grief-fueled apathy. "Yes," I said cautiously. "Do I know you?" A sad smile touched his lips. "Arthur Jenkins. I'm an attorney. I represented Robert on a few occasions." He paused, his gaze steady and intense. "And I have something for you." From inside his jacket, he produced a thick manila envelope, surprisingly heavy. My heart began to pound, a frantic drum against my ribs. He pressed it into my hand, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "You need to know the truth about your husband's death." The world seemed to tilt. Robert's death had been ruled an accident, a tragic fall from the old oak tree in our backyard while trimming branches. That's what everyone said. That's what I believed. Yet, as my fingers closed around the envelope, my eyes landed on the familiar, elegant script of my husband's handwriting on the front. Robert. The sight sent a wave of nausea through me, coupled with a chilling certainty that whatever was inside, it would shatter what little peace I had left. Arthur Jenkins continued, his words a low murmur against the rush of passing cars. "Robert came to me about 6 months ago. He was concerned about some financial discrepancies. Said they involve people close to you both." My mind raced, reeling from the implications. Financial discrepancies? People close to us? Instantly, my thoughts flew to Derek and Chloe. Robert's closest relatives besides myself. No, it couldn't be them. Not Derek, Robert's business partner and best friend. Not Chloe, my own sister, who had just spent the last 2 days fussing over me. It was unthinkable. "His death wasn't an accident, Eleanor," Arthur said, his voice firm, shattering my denials. "I believe he was murdered." "No!" The word burst from me, sharp and involuntary. It was an accident. The ladder slipped. He fell. My voice cracked on the last word, tears threatening to overwhelm me again. He shook his head slowly, sadly. "Read the contents of that envelope. It will explain everything, but you must read it alone. And if you need to call me, use a payphone. Don't use your cell." He pressed the envelope deeper into my shaking hands, his eyes conveying a grave warning. "You are in danger, Eleanor." As abruptly as he'd appeared, the encounter ended. Arthur gestured to his tire, which, to my utter astonishment, now appeared perfectly inflated. There was no sign of a jack, no tools, no repair kit. It was as if the flat tire had never existed. He gave me one last, meaningful look, then got into his car, started it with a smooth purr, and drove away, disappearing down Route 12 with an unnerving swiftness. I stood there for a long moment, the heavy manila envelope clutched to my chest, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. The man, the words, the miraculously fixed tire. It felt like a scene from a dream, a nightmare. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely turn the key in my ignition. The drive home was a blur of rising dread. As I pulled into our driveway, my heart leaped into my throat. Derek's car was there, and through the living room window, I could see him and Chloe. They were sitting on the sofa, talking in hushed tones, their heads close together. A new surge of panic, cold and clear, coursed through me. I couldn't let them see this envelope. I couldn't let them know. Slipping out of the car, I hurried into the house through the back door, securing the envelope under a stack of magazines on a side table in the den before entering the living room. "Eleanor, we were just getting worried," Chloe said, rising to hug me. Her embrace felt tight, a little too tight. "Just ran out for some groceries," I managed, avoiding their gaze. Their questions, disguised as concern, felt sharp and probing. "Have you looked at Robert's papers, Elle, the will? His investments?" Derek asked, his voice smooth but his eyes searching mine. He was so meticulous. "Did he mention anything about outstanding debts or anything unusual?" I swallowed hard. "No, nothing," I lied, forcing a weary smile. "It's all too much right now. I haven't even thought about it." Their expressions softened, or perhaps they pretended to. They stayed for another hour, their presence a suffocating weight. Only when they finally left, promising to check on me tomorrow, did I allow myself to breathe. The moment their car disappeared down the street, I retrieved the envelope, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I locked the front door, drew the curtains, and sank onto the sofa, the same sofa where Robert and I had shared so many quiet evenings. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, I tore open the seal. Inside, there wasn't just one letter, but a thick stack of documents. At the very top, a letter in Robert's familiar handwriting, addressed to me. My eyes blurred with tears as I began to read. "My dearest Eleanor," it began. My vision swam, but I forced myself to focus. "If you are reading this, it means my fears were justified, and I am no longer with you. I know this must be a terrible shock, but you need to be strong. Don't trust anyone, especially not Marcus and Jessica. Nothing is as it seems." The words hit me like a physical blow. Jessica? Who was Jessica? And Marcus? My brother-in-law? The man who had been at my side for the past 2 days, offering comfort and support? My world, already shattered by Robert's death, now fragmented into 1,000 sharp pieces. The ground beneath me wasn't just shaking, it was collapsing. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the darkness, the envelope clutched to my chest, Robert's chilling words echoing in my mind. Don't trust anyone. The unthinkable truth began to settle in. Robert hadn't died in an accident, and the people I thought I could rely on might be the very ones who had taken him from me. The words of Robert's letter, "Don't trust anyone, especially not Marcus and Jessica. Nothing as it seems," branded themselves onto my mind. All through the long, terrifying night, I reread the message, my fingers tracing the familiar contours of his handwriting, seeking some hidden comfort, some logical explanation that would dispel the rising tide of fear. Each repetition only deepened the chilling reality. Marcus, my brother-in-law, a man I had always considered a pillar of support. And Jessica? I still couldn't place her. The name a cold, sharp shard of mystery in the unfolding nightmare. The world outside my window shifted from the oppressive black of night to the gray pre-dawn, then to a weak, watery morning light. My eyes, red-rimmed and exhausted, kept returning to the bottom of the letter where a handwritten phone number was scrawled, almost hidden underneath Robert's signature. Arthur Jenkins's number. It was my only lifeline, the only thread connecting me to the truth Robert had desperately tried to convey. My own cell phone felt tainted, a potential eavesdropping device, just as Arthur had warned. So as the first rays of sun struggled through the clouds, I dressed quickly, my movements stiff with lingering shock and fear. I drove, not to the supermarket, but to the old Murphy's gas station on the edge of town. Its lone, dilapidated payphone booth stood like a relic from another era, its cracked plastic reflecting my own fractured state of mind. With a trembling hand, I inserted a quarter and dialed the number. The ring echoed in my ear, each pulse a hammer blow against my anxiety. To my surprise, Arthur answered on the first ring, his voice calm, almost as if he had been expecting my call, waiting by the phone. "Eleanor?" he asked, his voice low and steady. "Are you safe?" "Yes," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "For now." "Good," he said, a breath of relief in his tone. "Did you read Robert's letter?" "All of it, countless times," I replied, the raw emotion evident in my voice. "But Arthur? Marcus? Jessica? It just doesn't make sense. Marcus is Robert's brother, my sister Chloe. She was with Marcus just yesterday. They're not criminals. Maybe they're just irresponsible. Materialistic, yes, but..." I trailed off, desperate to cling to any alternative explanation. The idea of them being actively involved in Robert's death, or in some deep, insidious plot, was too monstrous to comprehend. Arthur listened patiently, his silence a gentle pressure rather than an interruption. "Eleanor," he finally said, his voice kind but firm. "Robert wouldn't have jumped to conclusions. He was a methodical man. I need you to think, truly think. Have you noticed anything off, anything unusual in the past year concerning Marcus or Chloe? Any small detail that, looking back, might seem suspicious?" His words were a key, unlocking a mental dam I hadn't even realized I'd built. Memories initially dismissed as trivial, now flooded back with an unsettling clarity. I saw Marcus and Chloe hunched together over papers at our kitchen table, their voices dropping to whispers the moment I entered the room. I remembered Jessica. The name finally clicked. Robert's cousin. Jessica, at a family gathering, casually remarking on the exact balance of our shared savings account, a detail I was certain Robert had never shared. And Derek. Derek, taking secretive phone calls, excusing himself to another room, his face taut with an expression I now recognized as guarded. "Yes," I admitted, the word a gasp. "Yes, I did. I thought I was just being paranoid, or maybe it was the stress of Robert's long hours. But Robert, he noticed it too. He said they were acting off. He said he was going to look into it." Arthur's voice was grim. "He did. That's why he hired me. He suspected Marcus and Chloe were living far beyond their means. Their recent lavish spending, the new house, the luxury car, the expensive vacations, it just didn't add up to Derek's salary at the time. Robert believed they were getting money from somewhere, and he suspected it was from your shared accounts, or from his business." A cold dread seeped into my bones. "Derek fixed Robert's computer a few months ago," I said, the memory surfacing unbidden. "He said Robert had a virus. He spent an entire afternoon here fiddling with it." The realization hit me then, sharp and painful. He must have gained access to everything, all our financial data, our passwords. "That aligns with Robert's timeline for seeking my help," Arthur confirmed. He suspected his system had been compromised. He'd started noticing small transactions he couldn't explain. He'd changed all his passwords, but then discovered new discrepancies. It suggests they had been planning this for a while, a long-term scheme. The pieces, once scattered and seemingly unrelated, were now fitting together, forming a grotesque mosaic of betrayal. My husband, my sister, my brother-in-law, plotting against us. The thought made my stomach churn with a sickening mix of anger and disbelief. "Robert was going to confront Derek," Arthur continued, his voice heavy. "He had compiled enough evidence. He was going to lay it all out for him the day after his death. The timing, Eleanor, it's incredibly suspicious." My head reeled. The day after his death. Robert hadn't just fallen, he had been silenced. "In his final weeks," Arthur added, his tone softening slightly, "Robert was cautious, very cautious. He started checking his car every morning before leaving for work, looking under it, in the wheel wells. And he was carrying a small voice recorder with him everywhere. He was trying to protect himself, And you, from what he was uncovering. A small recorder, Robert, always so pragmatic, always thinking ahead. Even as the horrifying truth began to solidify, a faint flicker of hope ignited within me. Robert had prepared. He had left a trail. He had left me a way to fight back. The silence on the other end of the line stretched, thick with unspoken dread. My throat felt constricted, my voice a mere rasp when I finally managed to speak. The recordings, Arthur, the ones Robert made, do you have them? The question was a desperate plea, a fragile hope that some tangible proof existed, something that could either validate or refute the terrifying implications of Robert's letter. Yes, Eleanor, I do. Arthur's voice came back, firm and unwavering. And I promise you, they will shock you to your core. They contain conversations. Conversations between Marcus and Jessica about your and Robert's assets. Conversations about planning for after Robert was gone. The world tilted again. Marcus and Jessica, not Derek and Chloe. The names had been a blur in my initial shock, but now the distinct clarity of Robert's words from the letter resurfaced. Don't trust anyone, especially not Marcus and Jessica. Marcus, my brother-in-law, Robert's own brother, and Jessica, Robert's cousin. The betrayal felt even more profound, a deeper cut, coming from those who shared Robert's blood. The depth of their callousness, planning for after Robert was gone, twisted my stomach into knots. My heart ached for Robert, for the agony he must have endured, realizing his own family was plotting against him. I need to hear them, I insisted, my voice gaining a desperate strength. Now I need to know. Eleanor, once you hear this, you cannot unknow it, Arthur warned, his voice grave. There's no going back. There's no going back anyway, I retorted, the words laced with a bitterness that surprised even myself. Robert had died believing this. He had suffered, knowing his own brother and cousin were stealing from him, perhaps even orchestrating his demise. How could I not face the truth he died trying to expose? All right, Arthur said, the sound of papers rustling in the background. Meet me tonight, the Riverside Diner, 7 o'clock. There's a booth in the back, near the kitchen, usually quiet. Come alone, Eleanor, and make sure no one follows you. No one. His emphasis on no one sent a fresh shiver down my spine. I agreed, the receiver feeling heavy and cold in my trembling hand. Hanging up, I stepped out of the payphone booth, the bright morning sun feeling harsh and alien. My mind was a chaotic storm of emotions. Shock, grief, disbelief, and a terrifying dawning rage. My brother-in-law and cousin plotting to rob us. And perhaps even worse, perhaps they were responsible for Robert's death. The drive home was a blur of heightened senses. Every car in my rear-view mirror felt like a potential pursuer. As I neared our house, I saw it. Derek's car parked discreetly down the street. A pang of relief, then confusion. Why was he here again? He waved from inside, his smile wide, almost too wide, too forced. It didn't reach his eyes. A chilling thought, clear and sharp, pierced through the fog of my grief. If Robert was killed for what he knew, for the truth he had uncovered, then I too was in mortal danger. I was now the keeper of his secret. The hours crawled by, each minute an eternity of nervous anticipation. I avoided Derek, citing a headache and exhaustion, retreating to my bedroom, my ears straining for any suspicious sound. Finally, as twilight deepened into night, I slipped out of the house, taking the scenic road to the Riverside Diner, deliberately driving past it once before parking several blocks away and walking the rest of the way, checking over my shoulder repeatedly. Arthur was already there, tucked into a secluded booth just as he'd described. He looked utterly exhausted, his usually sharp eyes shadowed with fatigue. A stack of documents lay on the table before him, which he quickly gathered and placed into a briefcase as I approached. Arthur, I said, sliding onto the opposite seat, my voice barely a whisper. Please tell me this is all a mistake, that there's some misunderstanding, that Robert was wrong. He looked at me, his grim expression a silent answer. There was no mistake, no misunderstanding, only a devastating, inescapable truth. A waitress, her face etched with the weariness of a long shift, came to take our order. We both ordered coffee, though I suspected neither of us would be able to taste it. Once she left, Arthur leaned forward, his voice barely audible above the clatter of dishes from the kitchen. Eleanor, he began, Robert discovered something much bigger than just family greed, much more dangerous. He paused, his gaze unwavering. The financial discrepancies weren't just about siphoning off your savings. They were a cover for something else entirely. Something criminal, something that tied into a larger, more organized operation. My breath hitched. Organized operation? My mind struggled to grasp the enormity of it. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and placed a small, innocuous-looking digital voice recorder on the table between us. Its black casing seemed to absorb the dim light of the diner, making it appear even more ominous. "Are you ready, Eleanor?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. "Are you ready to hear Robert's recordings?" I looked at the recorder, then at Arthur, then back at the device that held the key to Robert's final days, to his truth. My heart hammered against my ribs, a desperate drumbeat of fear and resolve. I nodded, a silent command to myself to be strong, to face whatever horrors lay hidden within that small, silent machine. With a solemn nod, Arthur reached for the small digital recorder. He pressed a button, and the quiet hum of the diner was suddenly pierced by the unmistakable sound of Robert's voice. It was faint at first, then clearer, as if he were just beyond the thin partition of the booth. My breath caught in my throat, a wave of profound grief washing over me, mixed with a chilling anticipation. Then other voices, familiar, insidious, began to filter through the speaker. First, Derek's. "The old man is getting suspicious," he mumbled, his tone laced with a nervous edge. "He's been asking about the Thompson account." My mind raced. Martha Thompson, an elderly widow, a sweet woman Robert had handled taxes for years. She lived alone, her husband having passed away a decade ago. Robert always spoke of her with a gentle fondness, ensuring her finances were managed with the utmost care. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Then Chloe's voice, sharp and dismissive. "He's just old and confused. We'll just move Martha's assets offshore like we did with the others. She'll never notice until it's too late." The others? The word burst from my lips, a strangled cry. My grip tightened on my coffee cup until my knuckles were white. The ceramic felt fragile, ready to shatter under the pressure, mirroring my own fragile composure. "What others?" Arthur paused the recording, the sudden silence deafening after the chilling intimacy of the voices. He reached into his briefcase and placed stacks of documents on the table. Photos of various elderly people, bank statements, official-looking documents with what were clearly forged signatures. The evidence piled up between us, a stark, damning testament to their depravity. "Eleanor," Arthur began, his voice heavy with explanation, "Derek and Chloe have been running a sophisticated elder fraud operation. They were specifically targeting Robert's elderly clients, the ones he trusted, the ones who trusted him implicitly." He pushed a photo across the table. It was Mrs. Miller, a kind-faced woman who used to bake cookies for Robert every Christmas. Then Mr. Davis, a retired school teacher. The Wongs, an immigrant couple who had built a successful dry cleaning business from scratch. All elderly, like Martha Thompson living alone. All vulnerable. My heart sank with each face I recognized. 12 victims, Arthur confirmed, his voice devoid of emotion. 12 lives devastated, their hard-earned savings systematically plundered. Approximately $800,000, he added, the figure a staggering testament to their greed. Robert discovered it all, Eleanor. He wasn't involved. He was just a means to an end for them to gain access. He explained the mechanics of their heinous scheme. Derek, with his access to Robert's computer, had been intercepting mail, rerouting financial statements, and forging signatures on withdrawal forms. Chloe, with her more technical skills, handled the online transfers, setting up shell companies and offshore accounts, making the money disappear without a trace. They were a perfectly synchronized criminal enterprise, hidden behind smiles and manufactured concern. Arthur pressed play again. Chloe's voice, dripping with casual cruelty, filled the booth once more. "They're so clueless. It'll be months before anyone notices. By then, we'll be long gone. Bermuda, maybe, or the Caymans." A chilling, cold laugh followed, echoing in the small diner booth. Then a new voice. Marcus. What about Robert? He's not stupid. He'll figure it out eventually. And Jessica, her voice light, almost playful, as if discussing a trivial matter. That's what the life insurance is for, darling. A tidy sum if you play your cards right. The words struck me like a physical blow, a punch to the gut that left me breathless. Life insurance. My mind reeled back to Robert's accident. My brother-in-law, Robert's own brother, and Jessica, his cousin, were discussing Robert's death not as a tragedy, but as a financial opportunity, a calculated part of their criminal enterprise. They didn't just want his money. They wanted him gone. My Robert, the kindest, most ethical man I knew. Arthur reached across the table and placed another photograph before me. It was a grainy image taken in a dimly lit auto repair shop. In the foreground, partially obscured, was Derek's car. A man in a mechanic's uniform was working on the undercarriage, installing what looked like a small, intricate device near the brake lines. This photo was taken 2 days before Robert's accident, Arthur stated, his voice flat. It's a braking interference device, designed to cause catastrophic failure at a specific time. My world went silent. The ladder hadn't slipped. The tree hadn't claimed Robert by chance. He had been murdered, deliberately. And his own family, his brother, his cousin, were complicit. Derek and Chloe were the masterminds of the fraud, but Marcus and Jessica were the architects of his death. Robert was scheduled to meet with the FBI, Arthur continued, his voice barely a whisper, as if acknowledging the enormity of what he had just revealed. The day after he died, he was going to turn over all the evidence against them, everything he had uncovered. He was going to expose them all. The truth was a heavy, suffocating blanket pressing down on me. Robert had been murdered because he was about to expose a vast, cruel fraud scheme perpetrated by his own family. He hadn't just fallen, he had been silenced. And now I held the weight of his truth and his revenge in my hands. Don't miss a single twist of this story. The truth is far more sinister than you can imagine. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to follow along as Eleanor uncovers the shocking depths of betrayal. The weight of it all was crushing. My quiet, unassuming Robert, a man who preferred books to parties, had been embroiled in a high-stakes investigation, secretly working with federal agents to expose a criminal enterprise. It was almost impossible to reconcile this image with the gentle, loving husband I had known. Yet, the evidence laid bare before me in the dim light of the diner was undeniable. Arthur reached into his briefcase again, producing a single sheet of paper. Robert left this for you, Wow, he said, his voice softer now, almost empathetic. It was another note in Robert's distinct handwriting, dated just days before his death. My dearest Eleanor, it read, I know this is moving quickly, and I haven't been able to tell you everything, but I'm going to send you away, far away, before the arrests. I need you to be safe. I know my life is at risk, but I can't let them hurt you. She deserves to know that I loved her enough to try to save her from this nightmare. A fresh wave of tears stung my eyes, but this time they were mixed with a fierce, protective love for the man who had tried so desperately to shield me. He knew he was going to die, and he was trying to protect me even then. The accident report confirmed it, Arthur stated, pulling me back to the grim reality. Robert's brakes failed due to severed lines. The damage was specifically designed to manifest under pressure, at speed, precisely when he would have been on Miller's Bridge. It was cold, calculated, and executed to look like an accident. Miller's Bridge, the long, winding stretch of road with a sharp decline, notorious for its narrow lanes and blind curves. It was the perfect spot for a planned accident. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. If they were willing to kill Robert to cover their tracks, what would they do to me? The life insurance money, while substantial, wouldn't be enough for their lavish lifestyle, not after their fraud scheme dried up. No, they would be coming for our joint assets next, my assets, my inheritance, my entire future. Arthur confirmed my fears. They're positioning themselves as your support system, Eleanor, the grieving relatives offering comfort, helping you navigate your loss. But their true objective is to gain access to your joint assets, your personal accounts, anything they couldn't get their hands on while Robert was alive and watching. Their helpful questions, the ones that had felt intrusive just yesterday, now took on a sinister new meaning. Have you looked at Robert's papers, El? The will? His investments? Derek's smooth voice. Chloe's faux concern about estate management. They weren't trying to help me, they were probing, gathering information, planning their next move. I remembered Derek asking about the location of our safe deposit box keys, Chloe subtly inquiring about my online banking passwords. They had been laying the groundwork, patiently waiting for their opportunity. Arthur confirmed it. They'll likely try to get you to sign power of attorney or some sort of estate transfer documents, anything to gain legal control. We need to get you to safety, Eleanor, Arthur urged, his voice filled with genuine concern. The FBI has their evidence, but it's a slow process. If they know you have this information, you're in immediate danger. But a stubborn fire had ignited within me. No, I said, my voice firm, despite the tremor in my hands. I'm not running. Robert died fighting these people. I won't let his death be in vain. I'm going to see this through. Arthur sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. Police involvement right now is complicated. The evidence is largely circumstantial without the FBI's full backing, and Derek and Chloe have carefully constructed alibis for Robert's death. We need more. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, disposable cell phone already charged. Keep this with you. Use it to call me, and be careful, Eleanor. Every word you say, every move you make around them could be used against you. Or worse. I clutched the phone, its plastic casing a cold reassurance. Returning home, the house that once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a cage, a place of lurking danger. A cold, hard anger had replaced my grief, fueling a fierce determination to fight back, to avenge Robert. As I approached the back door, I noticed fresh footprints in the damp earth, leading directly to the latch. Someone had been here. Someone had been watching. The next morning, the prepaid phone vibrated in my hand. It was Derek, calling my regular cell. His voice was brimming with feigned concern. Eleanor, how are you doing? Chloe and I were thinking of coming over. Maybe help you go through some of Robert's things? It must be overwhelming. The words, once a gesture of kindness, now sounded like a predator's invitation. I forced myself to feign the grieving widow, my voice trembling with practiced sorrow. Oh, Derek, that's so kind of you. Yes, please. I'm just so lost. We agreed they would come over that afternoon. My mind, however, was already racing, formulating a plan. I would play their game. I would let them come. But this time I would be watching them, and I would gather my own evidence. I made a mental note. Chloe often brought a casserole. I would politely decline. I wouldn't be taking any chances. True to their word, Derek and Chloe arrived that afternoon, their faces carefully composed into masks of concerned relatives. Chloe, of course, had her casserole, which I politely placed on the counter, making a mental note to dispose of it later. The moment they stepped inside, their pretense of grief slipped. Derek, without so much as a word, immediately made a beeline for Robert's study. I watched, a cold certainty settling in my gut, as he began rifling through Robert's meticulously organized papers, not with the aim of helping, but searching for something specific. Evidence. My suspicions were confirmed. I decided to test Chloe. She was hovering in the kitchen, pretending to fuss with the casserole. Oh, Chloe, I said, my voice carefully crafted to sound mournful and a little ditzy. Robert was always so organized. He kept all the really important documents, the deeds, the bonds, in that safe deposit box at the bank. Chloe's eyes, which had been dull with feigned sympathy, suddenly sharpened, a flicker of excitement igniting in their depths. A safe deposit box? She chirped, almost too eagerly. Oh, Eleanor, that's wonderful. We should go together tomorrow, perhaps, and inventory everything. Just to make sure it's all in order for you. Her smile was sickly sweet, but I saw the calculating gleam beneath it. Just then, Derek emerged from the study, his face etched with frustration. Eleanor, he began, his voice strained, I can't find Robert's office files, and I really need his computer passwords to sort out some business affairs. There are some urgent deadlines approaching. He gestured vaguely towards Robert's locked desktop. I feigned utter helplessness, a performance I hoped was convincing. Oh, Derek, you know me and computers. They're just so complicated. Robert handled all of that. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I wrung my hands, trying to look suitably overwhelmed. Perhaps Robert's business partner, Mr. Henderson, could help with the professional matters. He knows all of Robert's systems. Derek and Chloe exchanged a quick, irritated glance. The suggestion of involving a third party, particularly one who actually knew Robert's business, clearly didn't sit well with their plans. They wanted unfettered access, not external oversight. Well, yes, perhaps, Derek mumbled, visibly annoyed. But some things are more personal, Eleanor. Your finances, for instance. Oh, those are all fine for now, thank you, I said, trying to sound dismissive. I can manage the household bills at least. I excused myself, claiming a sudden headache, and retreated to the guest bedroom, leaving the door ajar, my heart pounding in my chest. From there, I could just make out their hushed voices from the living room. She's being evasive, Derek hissed, his voice low and angry. She's not as helpless as she usually acts, and she deliberately deflected from the computer. She knows something, Chloe. I can feel it. Chloe's voice was sharper, colder. She couldn't possibly know. Robert kept everything under wraps, but you're right. She's acting differently. Maybe she found something after all. We need to move faster. Get her to sign those power of attorney papers today, before she gets any ideas. Then Derek's response, a chilling whisper that solidified the ice in my veins. Then we'll have to consider other options. We've come too far to let her ruin everything now. Other options. The words echoed in the small room, a direct threat, unmistakable and terrifying. They were talking about killing me, just as they had killed Robert. My breath hitched in my throat. I was no longer just a grieving widow. I was a target. I forced myself to take a few calming breaths, trying to regain my composure. When I returned to the kitchen, Chloe was holding a folder, her smile strained but still fixed. Eleanor, darling, she cooed. Derek and I were just looking at some estate planning documents. Simple powers of attorney, really. Just so we can help you with all the financial matters, pay bills, that sort of thing. It'll take so much stress off you. She pushed the papers across the countertop, a pen poised beside them. This was it, the trap, the moment of truth. My heart hammered, but a steely resolve settled over me. I pushed the papers away, my voice calm, almost casual, despite the terror gripping me. Oh, Chloe, that's very thoughtful of you. But Robert always said one should never sign legal documents without a lawyer reviewing them first. I'll need to schedule an appointment with Arthur Jenkins next week, just to be sure. Marcus's expression, which had been carefully neutral, visibly hardened. Chloe's smile wavered, a flicker of raw irritation crossing her face before she quickly composed herself. Of course, dear, she said, her voice now tight. Whatever you think is best. Yes, I reiterated, my voice gaining strength. I'll think about it next week. I met their gazes, letting my own eyes convey a newfound quiet determination. The air in the kitchen grew thick with unspoken tension. They tried to make small talk for a few more minutes, but their usual ease was gone. They knew I had rebuffed their attempt. Eventually, they made their excuses and left, their parting words of comfort sounding hollow and menacing. The moment their car pulled out of the driveway, I rushed to the guest bedroom, grabbing the prepaid phone Arthur had given me. My fingers fumbled with the buttons, my mind racing. Arthur, I whispered into the phone, my voice urgent. They know, they threatened me. Other options. They're coming for me. I quickly relayed the entire exchange, the whispers, the papers, the chilling threat. The game had begun. No, Arthur, I stated firmly into the phone, my voice resolute. I'm not running. I'm not some helpless victim they can just get rid of. I'm going to be a bigger threat to them than they ever imagined. The fear was still a cold knot in my stomach, but beneath it, a burning resolve had taken root. I would not let Robert's death be in vain. Arthur's sigh was heavy with concern. Eleanor, I understand your resolve, but you're in immediate danger. I'm sending some protection to your house tonight. Don't open the door for anyone but me, and only if I call you first. I agreed, a strange mix of fear and grim satisfaction settling over me. They wanted a fight. They were going to get one. After our call, I moved through the house like a phantom, double-checking every lock, drawing every curtain, creating a fortress out of our home. My life, once a predictable rhythm of domesticity, had become a battleground. The hours ticked by, each tick of the grandfather clock in the hall amplifying the silence, straining my nerves. At precisely 11:30 p.m., the soft crunch of tires on gravel broke the stillness. I peered through a crack in the curtains. It was Derek's distinctive BMW pulling up silently a few houses down. Two shadowy figures emerged, moving with an eerie stealth towards my back door. My heart leaped into my throat. Derek and Chloe. Flashlights. And in Derek's hand, unmistakable in the moonlight, was a set of lockpicking tools. They weren't coming to check on me. They were breaking in. My hands trembled as I fumbled for the prepaid phone, dialing Arthur's number. "David?" I whispered urgently into the receiver, using the code name Arthur had given me for emergencies. "They're in my house. Marcus and Jessica just broke in through the back door. Get out, Eleanor, get out now." Arthur's voice, usually so calm, was sharp with alarm, but it was too late. I heard the faint click of the lock, followed by the soft creak of the back door opening. Marcus's voice, a low, menacing murmur, drifted into the living room. "Check upstairs, I'll search down here." Trapped, utterly, completely trapped. I crouched behind the sofa, clutching the phone, my breath ragged in my chest. This was it. This was the end. Then from the kitchen, a voice. A familiar voice. A voice that stopped, my heart cold, then kick-started it with a frantic, impossible beat. Looking for something specific? The sound of a terrified scream tore through the house. "Jessica. You're dead," Marcus stammered, his voice choked with disbelief and terror. "We saw your funeral. We buried you." "Death," the familiar voice replied, calm, almost amused, "has been greatly exaggerated. Hello, son. Jessica, I think we need to talk." Son? Jessica? The pieces of the puzzle, once neatly arranged, were now scattered in a chaotic explosion of impossibility. Marcus and Jessica were here, but the voice, driven by a bewildering mix of terror and an insane, desperate hope, I crept silently to the edge of the kitchen doorway. And there he was. Derek was plastered against the refrigerator, his face ashen, eyes wide with horror. Chloe was hyperventilating, clutching her chest, her face a sickly shade of green, and leaning against the kitchen counter, just as he used to do while waiting for his morning coffee, was Robert, my Robert. He looked exactly the same, perhaps a little paler, with a small, neatly taped bandage peeking out from under his shirt collar. But it was him, his kind eyes, the faint lines around them, the gentle curve of his lips. He was alive. The man I had grieved, the man I had buried, was standing in our kitchen. His gaze found mine, and a soft, apologetic smile touched his lips. "Eleanor," he murmured, his voice laced with unspeakable relief and regret. "I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you." I was speechless. My mind wrestled with the impossible reality. The funeral, the coffin, the eulogies, the deep, soul-crushing grief. All for a man who was now standing before me, alive and well. I couldn't reconcile it. My legs felt like jelly, threatening to give way. Robert pushed himself off the counter, his eyes fixed on Derek and Chloe. "Arthur knew all along, Eleanor," he explained, his voice calm, even as his gaze sharpened at Marcus and Jessica. "The plan was for me to disappear for a while, let them think they'd won. But events moved faster than we anticipated. When Arthur called and told me they were here tonight, I knew I had to come back." You bastard!" Marcus finally found his voice, a guttural snarl. "You faked your own death?" Robert cut him off, his voice suddenly hard, devoid of its usual warmth. "I heard the recordings, Marcus. I heard you and Jessica celebrating thy death, planning for Eleanor, discussing the life insurance." His eyes, usually so gentle, were now cold, piercing. "And I heard about Martha Thompson, Mrs. Miller, and all the others you swindled. You won't be getting away with any of it." The full weight of the deception, the elaborate charade, hit me with staggering force. Robert had faked his death. He had orchestrated this entire elaborate plan. And now he was here, confronting his betrayers. The words finally found their way through the shock and confusion, tumbling out in a breathless rush. Robert? How? How are you here? The accident, the funeral, I buried you. My voice cracked on the last word, a raw mixture of disbelief, anger, and an overwhelming, impossible relief. Robert stepped toward me, his eyes filled with a deep sorrow, and gently took my trembling hand. His touch was warm, real. I knew they planned to kill me, Eleanor Vamoine, he began, his voice low and steady, as if explaining a complex problem. Arthur and I, working with the FBI, we needed more time, more evidence. So I made a choice, the only choice I believed would protect you. He paused, looking at Derek and Chloe, who were still frozen in disbelief. I chose to fake my own death. My mind reeled. Fake his own death? The anger, sharp and hot, flared through my veins, temporarily eclipsing all other emotions. You let me grieve. You let me plan your funeral. I stood there, Robert, burying an empty casket, thinking you were gone forever. The pain of that memory, so vivid and agonizing, twisted inside me. His grip tightened on my hand, his eyes filled with a pain that mirrored my own. I know, Eleanor. And there isn't a single moment of that I haven't regretted, haven't agonized over. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you, I promise. Then, with a sudden shift in demeanor, Robert pulled out a small recording device, identical to the one Arthur had shown me at the diner. He held it up, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. Derek, Chloe, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, elder fraud, and numerous federal charges. Derek, finding a sliver of his old arrogance, scoffed. You're not a cop, old man. You can't arrest anyone. Just then, the front door burst open. Arthur Jenkins walked in, flanked by two stern-faced men in dark suits. Actually, Arthur said, his voice calm and authoritative, we can. He gestured to the agents. FBI, and this, he added, indicating Robert, is our key witness. The next hour was a blur. Miranda rights read aloud, handcuffs clicking. The efficient, clinical movements of federal agents as they swarmed the house, meticulously searching, documenting, gathering every shred of evidence. Derek and Chloe, their faces pale and defeated, were led away, their threats and schemes finally brought to an end. Through it all, I remained numb, a silent observer in my own home. I couldn't quite process Robert's presence, the unbelievable reality of him being alive. He stayed by my side, his hand never leaving mine, a quiet anchor in the surreal chaos. Finally, the house emptied. The agents left, Arthur with them, promising to be in touch with updates. And the silence that fell was different this time. Not the oppressive silence of grief, but the stunned quiet after a storm. I looked at Robert, truly looked at him, trying to reconcile the man who had just orchestrated this elaborate deception with the husband I thought I knew. How? I whispered, the single word encompassing a myriad of questions. How did you do it? Robert led me to the sofa, sitting beside me, his warmth a comforting presence against my chill body. When we detected the tampering with my car, we had less than an hour to make a decision. The FBI had enough to arrest Marcus and Jessica for the fraud, but not enough for the murder plot, and certainly not enough for federal convictions that would put them away for good. Arresting them then would have meant lighter sentences, or worse, they could have gotten away entirely, leaving them free to come after you. But to put me through that, I argued, my voice thick with emotion. The pain, the fear, thinking you were dead, it was cruel, Robert. His gaze was unwavering. Instead, I decided to protect you, Eleanor. They were already planning to kill you once they had access to our assets. They couldn't let you, the grieving widow, expose their fraud. This was the only way to keep you safe, to get them to reveal the full extent of their plans, and to ensure they went away for a very, very long time. I struggled with his words, with the logic of it all. It made sense, a terrible, agonizing sense. But the trauma of it, the days of unbearable grief, the funeral I had planned down to the smallest detail, how could I ever forget that? How could I forgive him for putting me through that? He seemed to read my thoughts. I know I have caused you immeasurable pain, Eleanor, and I will never be able to fully apologize for that. But I did it out of love. I did it because I knew they would come for you next. I will spend every single day for the rest of my life earning back your trust. Because, Eleanor, he said, his voice raw with emotion, pulling me into a gentle embrace. I love you more than my own life, and I couldn't bear to lose you. The raw sincerity in Robert's voice, his admission of fault, the depth of his regret, softened the hardened edges around my heart. But the pain, the profound betrayal I had felt, was not so easily erased. I don't know how to forgive you, Robert, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. Not yet. I want to, but I don't know how. He simply nodded, his eyes reflecting a quiet understanding. I know, Eleanor, and I don't expect it to be easy, but I'll be here every single day to earn it back. Dawn broke through the kitchen window, casting long, pale shadows across the room. The world outside would soon awaken, and with it, the news of Robert's resurrection and the arrests of Marcus and Jessica would undoubtedly spread like wildfire. But for now, in the quiet aftermath of the storm, it was just us, two people standing on the precipice of an unimaginable future, trying to figure out how to rebuild a life that had been shattered and then miraculously pieced back together in the most unconventional way imaginable. 6 months later, I sat in the federal courthouse, watching as Derek and Chloe stood before the judge. The gravity of their crimes, the calculated cruelty of their fraud, and their chilling conspiracy to commit murder had led to a federal sentence of 22 years each. Robert sat beside me, his hand resting lightly on mine. Our trust was still a delicate thing, a fragile seedling slowly growing, but it was there. We were together, facing this new reality, one step at a time. The courtroom was filled with the faces of the victims, or their families. Martha Thompson, frail but resilient, delivered a powerful testimony. Her voice, though soft, carried the weight of her betrayal, but also an undeniable strength. She spoke of her gratitude to Robert, to the man who had meticulously uncovered the truth and brought these criminals to justice. The full scope of Derek and Chloe's scheme was laid bare. An astonishing $843,000 stolen from vulnerable elderly clients across multiple states, their target on Robert chosen precisely because of his unwavering honesty and integrity. As the judge delivered the sentence, a wave of profound relief washed over me. Chloe, her face etched with a mix of fear and disbelief, could no longer hurt anyone. Derek, the cold, calculating mastermind, remained impassive, a blank mask that offered no flicker of remorse. After the sentencing, Robert and I lingered, speaking with other victims' families. There was a shared sense of closure, a quiet camaraderie among those who had been touched by such profound treachery. The injustice had been rectified, and that in itself was a powerful balm. Our journey to healing wasn't without its challenges. Argeus, our therapist, became an invaluable guide. She emphasized the importance of one honest conversation at a time, teaching us how to navigate the complex landscape of my grief and betrayal and Robert's burden of secret keeping. There were no more protective secrets. I was now involved in every aspect of Robert's business affairs, a partner in every sense of the word, a testament to our commitment to absolute transparency. Robert, disillusioned with the profession that had allowed such deceit to fester, had taken early retirement. As for me, the experience had ignited a new purpose. I'd returned to school, enrolling in a social work program with a specific focus on elder advocacy, determined to help prevent others from falling victim to similar scams. One crisp autumn evening, sitting on our back porch, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Robert shared some news. Arthur Jenkins has been offered a full-time position with the FBI's white-collar crime unit, he said, a proud smile gracing his lips. He's a remarkable man. He then turned to me, his hand reaching for mine. And Arthur, he also recommended us for the FBI's Victim Advocacy Program, a chance to turn our pain into purpose, Eleanor, to help others who have gone through similar betrayals, to offer them the support we wished we'd had. I looked out at the familiar landscape of our backyard, now a place of peace, not peril. The thought of helping others, of transforming our nightmare into a beacon of hope, resonated deeply within me. It felt right. We make a good team, Robert, I said, a genuine smile finally reaching my eyes. A very good team. Later that night, as I prepared for bed, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back was different, stronger, more vigilant, wiser. The shadow of grief had receded, replaced by a quiet resilience. I loved Robert, fiercely and completely, but now it was with my eyes wide open, fully aware of the complexities of the world and of the man beside me. We had faced the unthinkable, survived the impossible, and emerged on the other side, ready for whatever came next, together.